بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على نبينا وحبيبنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد. Today, inshallah, I'm going to talk about two surahs like I did yesterday. The two surahs today are very similar in the comparisons that they're going to draw and the choices they're going to offer. And at the end, inshallah, of this cluster of surahs that starts with Qaf and ends with Hadid, I will summarize these surahs and the comparisons that they, so it will be an even more concise summary at the end, inshallah. And today we'll talk about Surah Al-Qamar and Surah Al-Rahman. Surah Al-Qamar shows us how what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us can be a niqmah, can be, instead of being a blessing, it can be a curse. It could be something that causes us to suffer in the dunya and akhirah. And it draws the comparison between using it properly or it turning into a curse, and the choices that we can make regarding that. So the Rahman does the opposite. It looks at the blessing and it shows us the blessing and showing gratitude towards it, and it's staying and sticking around, or not showing gratitude and then losing it. So the niqmah and ni'mah equation. So Al-Qamar, Rahman, Al-Qamar talks about the things that can turn into curses instead of blessings, and Rahman talks about things that are meant to be blessings and actually serve as blessings. And it's this balance in between these two surahs that I find to be very interesting. That's why they're very beloved surahs, and you can understand why Rahman is loved so much, because it talks about blessings, and it's a very soothing surah. So I'll start with Surah Al-Qamar. He says subhanahu wa ta'ala at the beginning of it, both of them are Makki surahs. He said, اقتربت الساعة وانشق القمر وإن يروا آية يعرضوا ويقولوا سحر مستمر وكذبوا واتبعوا أهواءهم وكل أمر مستقر ولقد جاءهم من الأنباء ما فيه مزدجر حكمة بالغة. The time of the Day of Judgment has come near. وانشق القمر, and the moon will split. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time talking about that specific aspect, but I'll say this. The narrations about regarding that the moon split during the Prophet ﷺ's life, that they actually saw, are an issue of controversy. And most likely what this verse is talking about is the fact that Yawm al-Qiyamah, the moon will split. And that is something we know. We know that on the Day of Judgment what's going to happen to the sun and to the stars and to the moon. This is something that we have no doubt about at all. And that's a better way to understand the surah, rather than trying to understand it regarding something that there's a lot of controversy regarding its authenticity and what it actually meant. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, وَإِن يَرَوْا آيَةً, and if they see signs of God, they'll just say this is ongoing sorcery, it's ongoing magic. When they refuse, and they're refusing to believe what they know is the truth. وَاتَّبَعُوا أَهْوَاءَهُمْ, and they're following their whims. وَكُلُّ أَمْرٍ مُسْتَقِرٍ, but everything will settle on the Day of Judgment and everything will become clear. وَلَقَدْ جَاءَهُمْ مِنَ الْأَنْبَاءِ مَا فِيهِ مُزْدَجَرٍ, and they've been given enough information, they've been told enough stories, they have enough knowledge. What would, had they used it properly, they would actually stop saying what they're saying, and that would have been enough for them to leave the path that they're on. حِكْمَةٌ بَالِغَةٌ, they've been given a lot of wisdom. فَمَا تُغْنِ النُّذُرُ, but what are warnings good for people who don't want to listen to it? And we're going to find that phrase that starts here at the beginning of the surah. فَمَا تُغْنِ النُّذُرُ, what good are warnings? Now, we're going to find it all throughout the surah, repeated time and time again, where he says subhanahu wa ta'ala, فَكَيْفَ كَانَ عَذَابِي وَنُذُرُ, how did you find my punishment and my warnings to be? فَذُوقُوا عَذَابِي وَنُذُرُ, may you suffer from my punishment and my warnings. You'll find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used that phrase in Surah Al-Qamar time and time again. After the nation being warned by their prophets, and after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala offering them means to repent and to change their ways, they don't, and they're punished. Which means that the guidance that they were given, that gift that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala offered them, went from being a blessing to being a curse upon them. And that is something that we need to contemplate and think about and properly understand, so that you don't misunderstand the way I'm saying this or what I'm saying. That's why in this surah, after each of those verses, فَذُوقُوا عَذَابِي وَنُذُرْ فَكَيْفَ كَانَ عَذَابِي وَنُذُرْ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminding of, and then you saw my punishment and my warnings. He says right after the ayah, also repeated 6-7 times in the surah, وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ. And we have made the Qur'an easy for remembrance. فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ. Is there anyone who is willing to use it as means to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to contemplate and take advice and take benefit? Which is kind of what I was saying a second ago. See, the Quran itself, ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala salam, and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us the best of it. The Quran itself is either a blessing or it could be the opposite of that. It could be the opposite. It could be the reason that the person is punished yawm al-qiyamah. The Quran is either shaheed lak or shaheed alayk. It's either going to testify on your behalf yawm al-qiyamah or testify against you. And that's what Surat al-Qamar is looking at. Watch out. The Quran has within it all the means for you to use it properly, but if you don't, it's going to turn against you. It's going to be something that you're going to regret that you ever knew. Which is a scary, but that's what Surat al-Qamar is teaching. That we have to beware. What Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us can be used in both ways. That's Surat al-Qamar, Surat al-Rahman. It's the same stuff He's dealing subhanahu wa ta'ala, but how are we going to use them? And that's what's going to dictate whether they're going to be a niqmah or a ni'mah, going to be a curse upon us or a blessing upon us. And Surah Al-Qamar warns us from making them curses. And Surah Al-Rahman encourages us to make them blessings. فالسورتان اللتان سأتحدث عنهما اليوم هما سورتا القمر والرحمن. في هذا المحور الذي يتحدث المحور الذي يبتدئ بقاف وينتهي يعني بالحديد هو محور كل سورة فيه تعرض خيارين يعني تقارن بين أمرين وتعرض خيارين. وقد تحدثنا عن سورة قاف والذاريات والطور. كل يعني من هذه السور عرض يعني مقارنة وخيارين. واليوم سأتحدث عن السورتين لأن يعني المقارنة فيهما المقارنتين شبيهتان والخياران شبيهان أيضا. فسورة القمر تقارن بين ما يؤتيك الله سبحانه وتعالى من أن يكون نقمة أو أن يستخدم يعني بالطريق الصحيح. سورة الرحمن يقارن بين ما يؤتيك الله سبحانه وتعالى من نعمة فتشكر أو لا تشكر فتذهب. يعني ما يأتيك من الله سبحانه وتعالى نقمة أم نعمة. سورة القمر تركز على هذا المعنى التحذير من النقمة، وسورة الرحمن ترغبنا بأن نجعلها نعمة. وهذا هو الجميل في هاتين السورتين. وسورة القمر وكلاهما يعني سورتان وكلاهما مكي. فتفتتح سورة القمر بقوله اقتربت الساعة وانشق القمر. والراجح في معنى هذه الآية انشقاق القمر هو ذلك الذي يحصل عند يوم القيامة. أما ما ورد يعني من أحاديث في حادثة انشقاق القمر فندع هذا الكلام ليوم آخر، وهي قضية فيها خلاف وتحتاج إلى طول مراجعة وطول يعني تفكر وتدبر لحسن الحديث عنها. بينما ما تيقن لدينا كمسلمين أن القمر ينشق يعني يوم القيامة كما يعني تكور الشمس وتنكدر النجوم وتسجر البحار إلى ما هنالك من إهراسات الساعة وعلامات يوم القيامة الكبرى. فهنا والله أعلم الإشارة إلى علامة من علامات يوم القيامة الكبرى. اقتربت الساعة وانشق القمر. لكن ذلك الذي ما زال في حالة من الإنكار وفي حالة من التكذيب، وإن يروا آية يعرضوا ويقولوا سحر مستمر، هذا سحر ما زال مستمر. وكذبوا رفضوا الانصياع والاستماع واتبعوا أهواءهم، هي المشكلة العظمى. وكل أمر مستقر، لكن كل شيء سيستقر يوم القيامة ولن يبقى هناك مجال لا للريب ولا للشك. ولقد جاءهم من الأنباء ما فيه مزدجر. أتاهم ما يكفيهم لكن هم ازدجروا. يعني حكمة بالغة هذه أتتهم، حكمة عظيمة أتتهم من النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام. فما تغني النذر؟ هذا السؤال يكرر في السورة. ما تغني النذر؟ ما الفائدة من الإنذار إذا كان الإنسان لا يريد أن يستمع؟ من أجل ذلك نجد السورة فكيف كان عذابي ونذر، فذوقوا عذابي ونذر. انتبهوا من العذاب، انتبهوا من الإنذار. تستخدموا الخير الذي بين أيديكم للشر فيصبح نقمة عليكم. الإنسان يا إخواني إذا أوتي يعني النعمة ثم لم يحسن استخدامها انقلبت عليه نقمة يوم القيامة يحاسب عليها. ومن أجل هذا يعني بعد كل آية من هذه الآيات يقول سبحانه وتعالى ولقد يسرنا القرآن للذكر فهل من مدكر. القرآن ميسر حتى نستفيد منه ونتعظ ونتعلم، لكن هل هناك من هو مستعد أن يتعظ منه؟ إذا لم نكن مستعدين للاتعاظ منه أصبح القرآن شهيدا علينا، أصبح القرآن يعني وسامحوني على اللفظ نقمة علينا، ليس بذاته لكن بسوء استخدامنا له، بسوء تعاملنا معه. هذا الأمر ينطبق على الحافظ صلى الله سبحانه وتعالى السلام الذي يحفظ كتاب الله ثم لا يعمل بما فيه. يوم القيامة يا إخواني هذا من أوائل من يلقى في النار، والعياذ بالله، نسأل الله سبحانه وتعالى السلامة. يا رب سلم. قضية والله مخيفة وصعبة، لكن هذا هو الواقع. يعني إذا الإنسان لم يحسن استخدام ما آتاه الله سبحانه وتعالى من خير يكون نقمة عليه. وسورة القمر تحذر من هذه النقمة، تحذر من سوء الاستخدام، ومن أجل هذا يكرر ولقد يسرنا القرآن فهل من مدكر. تدكر يعني تذكر، أصبحت تذكر ثم أصبحت تدكر. والاذتكار ليس التذكر، إنما هو الاستفادة أو الفهم أو الاتعاظ أو النظر أو التدبر، هذا معنى الاذتكار. And then the surah goes through these stories. It gives us a glimpse of يوم القيامة. And then it continues. خش عن أبصارهم يخرجون من الأجداث كأنهم جراد منتشر مهطعين إلى الداع يقول الكافرون هذا يوم عسر. Gives us that snapshot of people leaving their graves and going towards the one who is calling upon them, and they're saying to themselves, this is going to be a difficult day. And then it goes and it talks about what's going to happen on the what happened to the people of Nuh. كذبت قبلهم قوم نوح فكذبوا عبدنا وقالوا مجنون وازدجر فدعا ربه أني مغلوب فانتصر ففتحنا أبواب السماء بماء منهمر. And the people of Nuh before them refused to listen to their prophet, and they oppressed Nuh until Nuh alayhi salam had to say, Ya Rabb, I am beaten, I am oppressed, I need help, I need your aid. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the water and they were drowned. And then it talks about Ad, كذبت عاد فكيف كان عذابي ونذر, and how Ad was punished. كذبت ثمود بالنذر, and it talks about Thamud and how they refused what their prophet taught them and they were punished. And then it talks about قوم لوط and how they refused what their prophet taught them and they were punished. And then it talks about فرعون ولقد جاء آل فرعون النذر كذبوا بآياتنا كلها فأخذناهم أخذ عزيز مقتدر. And how Fir'aun refused all of the signs that Musa alayhi salam showed them, and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala punished them. The common thread amongst all these people, all these nations, that they were all punished. See, not all the nations in the Quran were punished. The nation of Ibrahim alayhi salam was not, the Yunus alayhi salam was not. Not all of the nations saw punishment. But in Surat Al-Qamar, all of the nations that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke of, all of them were punished. And that's when the ni'mah that they were given was turned into a niqmah. That's when the blessing and the gift of their prophets and the guidance that their prophets had was taken and then misused and was refused and was not dealt with properly. It turned into a niqmah. It turned into a curse upon them, and it was their demise. And it ended their reigns. And that's why at the end of the surah says, أَكُفَّارُكُمْ خَيْرٌ مِّنْ أُولَٰئِكُمْ. What, do you think the people of Quraysh who are refusing Muhammad are better than those? No. أَمْ لَكُمْ بَرَاءَةٌ فِي الزُّبُرِ. Or somewhere in the books of the prophets it was said that the people of Quraysh are not going to be punished. أَمْ يَقُولُونَ نَحْنُ جَمِيعٌ مُنْتَصِرٌ. Or they're walking around saying we're stronger, we're always going to be victorious, and you'll never be able to beat us. سَيُهْزَمُ الْجَمْعُ وَيُوَلُّونَ الدُّبُرِ. Tell them they're going to be beaten. And they're going to be running in the opposite direction, all of them. بَلِ السَّاعَةُ مَوْعِدُهُمْ وَالسَّاعَةُ أَدْهَى وَأَمَرُّ. And tell them the day of judgment is what they're waiting for, or what is waiting for them. And it's worse. And it's much more scary. And it's much more difficult than whatever happens here in dunya. Surah Al-Qamar just brings this very heavy warning. إِنَّ الْمُجْرِمِينَ فِي ضَلَالٍ وَسُعُرٍ يَوْمَ يُسْحَبُونَ فِي النَّارِ عَلَى وُجُوهِهِمْ ذُوقُوا مَسَّ سَقَرٍ. The criminals on the day of judgment are going to go to the hellfire. They'll be pulled with their face down. إِنَّا كُلَّ شَيْءٍ خَلَقْنَاهُ بِقَدَرٍ. Everything that we created, he's saying subhanahu wa ta'ala, we created with a destiny behind it, with a goal for it. Why is that important? We're going to see the exact same concept in a moment in Surah Al-Rahman. Both surahs give the same idea. What you're given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a destiny, has a balance to it. If you use it well, it'll be a ni'mah, like Surah Al-Rahman we'll focus on in a moment. If you don't use it well, it'll be a niqmah, so make your choice. How you're going to use things is going to dictate what they're going to be. What you're given doesn't come with a stamp on it. Whatever happens to you in your life does not come stamped good or bad. It just comes. It's just a part of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's destiny. How you deal with it is going to label it. How you deal with something labels it khayr or shar. It can be easy or difficult. That's a given. And that's kind of what Surah Al-Qamar looks at, the difficult side. Surah Al-Qamar looks at the easier side. But it is not labeled as good or bad. Good or bad is you carry the labeling device in your own hand. Allah doesn't label it for you. He labels it difficult or easy. But you have the good or bad labeling device. And you would make that choice. That's why Surah Al-Qamar shows us all these nations that were punished, severely punished. And talks about the Quran. Is there anyone who's willing to use the Quran as a means to contemplate and reflect, because we've made it easy for contemplation and reflection? Is there anyone? There's a question. Will anyone do it? Or is the Quran going to come Yawm al-Qiyamah and testify against us? At the end of the surah, he says, subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَكُلُّ صَغِيرٍ وَكَبِيرٍ مُسْتَطَرٍ. Everything that is done, small or large, it's all written down, it's all documented. And it ends with قَوْلِ إِنَّ الْمُتَّقِينَ فِي جَنَّاتٍ وَنَهَرٍ فِي مَقْعَدِ صِدْقٍ عِنْدَ مَلِيكٍ مُقْتَدِرٍ. The pious will find themselves in paradise and in rivers, and they'll be in a place of honesty, of truth with their Lord, because they were truthful with themselves. The beginning of the surah talks about denial. Talks about how the disbelievers are in denial. No matter what you show them or what sign they see, there's nothing. Yeah, it's just ongoing sorcery. They're in denial. And all the stories, by the way, for the prophets, you'll find that thread as well. All the people, all the nations who refuse their prophets show some degree of denial as well. At the end of the surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the pious and say they're going to be in a place of truth, because they were able to be honest with themselves, and they're going to find themselves in a place of honesty, of truthfulness with their Lord. فِي مَقْعَدِ صِدْقٍ عِنْدَ مَلِيكٍ مُقْتَدِرٍ. With their Lord, the King who is capable of all. فإذا تابعت في سورة القمر تجد أن القصص كلها قصص الأقوام الذين أهلكوا. ليس كل الأقوام في القرآن أهلكوا. هناك أقوام لم يهلكوا. يعني هناك أقوام من قوم إبراهيم وقوم يونس ما أهلكوا، لكن هناك أقوام أهلكوا وعذبوا. في سورة القمر كل الأقوام الذين تحدثت السورة عنهم هم ممن أهلكوا وعذبوا. نوح عليه، قوم نوح وقوم هود وقوم صالح وقوم لوط وفرعون قوم موسى. كل هؤلاء الذين أهلكوا وعذبوا. فالمشترك بينهم أن الله سبحانه وتعالى آتاهم هداية وآتاهم رحمة وآتاهم أنبياء وكتبا وتشريعات خيرا عظيما، حكمة بالغة، لكن ما تغني النذر. إذا الإنسان أوتي هذا الخير كله، أوتي هذا الخير كله ثم لم يحسن استخدامه، قلبت عليه نقمة فكانت سببا في عذابه. ويحذر كفار قريش: كفاركم خير من أولئكم؟ لا أبدا. أم يقولون نحن جميع منتصر؟ لا، سيهزم الجمع، بل الساعة موعدهم. تحذير شديد، لهجة شديدة في سورة القمر: إن المجرمين في ضلال وسعور يوم يسحبون في النار على وجوههم. لكن تقول السورة في آخرها: إن كل شيء خلقناه بقدر. كل شيء أوتيته من الله سبحانه وتعالى مخلوق بقدر. أتاك على قدر، لا يأتيك خيرا أو شرا، يأتيك ربما نفعا أو ضرا، لكن لا يأتيك خيرا أو شرا. أنت الذي تحدد هذا الذي أتاك خير أو شر. هذه قضية إن كل شيء خلقناه بقدر، أي أن كل شيء عند الله سبحانه وتعالى مقدر موزون. سنجد صداه في سورة الرحمن. وكأن الله سبحانه وتعالى في هاتين السورتين اللتين تتحدثان عن ما يؤتيك الله سبحانه وتعالى إياه في الدنيا فيكون نقمة أو نعمة باختيارك، أن كل شيء موزون عند الله، كل شيء مقدر عند الله، ذا قدر عند الله سبحانه وتعالى. يعني ما في شيء يأتيك مطبوع مختوم عليه هذا خير وهذا شر، لا، يأتيك ربما نفعا أو ضرا، يسرا أو عسرا، لكن أنت الذي تختار هو خير أو شر بالطريقة التي تتعامل فيها معها. يا أخواني، من أجل هذا في سورة القمر التي كلها عقوبات: ولقد يسرنا القرآن فهل من مدكر؟ أحد يتذكر؟ ولا ستستخدمون القرآن لغير غايته وهدفه، ويكون حجة عليكم ويكون نقمة عليكم يوم القيامة، فيكون هذا باختياركم. تختم السورة بقوله: إن المتقين في جنات ونهر في مقعد صدق عند مليك مقتدر. المتقين عندهم صدق، ليس كصدر السورة الذين إن يروا آية يعرضوا ويقولوا سحر مستمر، ينكرون كل شيء. هؤلاء صدقوا مع أنفسهم فوجدوا أنفسهم في مقعد صدق عند مليك مقتدر. Surah Al-Rahman. Who doesn't love Surah Al-Rahman and enjoy reciting it and listening to it? Even the way, even the sound of it has repetition. فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. In which of all of the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do you too not believe or not accept? Speaking to both jinn and ins. And it's repeated time and time again, and that repetition brings a soothing feeling. So when you listen to it, it's as if it's a therapy session. It allows you to completely relax. Ar-Rahman, the most beautiful name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, filled with mercy, filled with compassion. It's a comforting name. Allama al-Quran, he taught the Quran. Khalaqa al-insan, and he created the human being. Allamahu al-bayan, he taught him how to communicate, taught him how to read and understand and express himself. This is the story of, this is what makes us unique. And this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did. Allama al-Quran, khalaqa al-insan, allamahu al-bayan. He taught the Quran, he created the human being, and then he taught him how to express himself and how to learn and how to speak. الشمس والقمر بحسبان. The stars and the sun and the stars are all calculated properly. وَالنَّجْمُ وَالشَّجَرُ يَسْجُدَانِ. And the stars and the trees, they all are a part of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's system. They prostrate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in their own way. أَلَّا تَطَغَوْا فِي الْمِيزَانِ. Do not ruin the balance. وَأَقِيمُوا الْوَزْنَ بِالْقِسْطِ وَلَا تُخْسِرُوا الْمِيزَانِ. And make sure that you're always fair, and you're doing things properly, and you're weighing things out the way they need to be weighed out. And you're offering them the correct amounts, and you're treating them in the proper way. وَلَا تُخْسِرُوا الْمِيزَانِ. And don't ruin this balance. Don't play around with the scale. And this is what the Surat al-Rahman talks about, similarly to Surat al-Qamar. That balance. He sends subhanahu wa ta'ala everything. He sends ease, sends difficulty. You decide whether there's going to be a niqmah, as Surat al-Qamar warned us from, or a ni'mah, as Surat al-Rahman is encouraging us to. It starts with this beautiful, beautiful beginning. Allah, the most merciful, who taught the Quran, who created the human being, and taught him to express himself and speak and communicate his own language, and created everything in a beautiful balance. Don't ruin the balance. وَأَقِيمُوا الْوَزْنَ بِالْقِسْطِ وَلَا تُخْسِرُوا الْمِيزَانِ. And then as you go throughout the surah, you find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just counting these blessings. مَرَجَ الْبَحْرَيْنِ يَلْتَقِيَانِ بَيْنَهُمَا بَرْزَخٌ لَا يَبْغِيَانِ فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. He had the two seas come to merge together. Between them is a barrier that allows some separation. So in which of the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do you too disbelieve, or are you too in refusal of? Even when he talks about death, كُلُّ مَنْ عَلَيْهَا فَانٍ. Everyone on it will end. Everything on it is going to end. But it's a blessing. وَيَبْقَى وَجْهُ رَبِّكَ ذُو الْجَلَالِ وَالْإِكْرَامِ. As long as the one who is filled with glory and generosity is going to be around, he's not going anywhere, he's not ending subhanahu wa ta'ala, then it's a blessing. فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. And the verses just continue, counting all of these blessings upon the human being, everything that was given. Even when it talks about, you see, there's always a balance in the surah of the Quran. As I said, no surah will only talk about blessings, will always be a reminder of punishment. Just like Surah al-Qamar, all punishment, then at the last word, there's going to be some talk of reward. That balance is in every surah of the Quran. It's a very sacred balance, extremely important. So yes, there is brief talk of punishment. يُعْرَفُ الْمُجْرِمُونَ بِسِيمَاهُمْ فَيُؤْخَذُ بِالنَّوَاصِي وَالْأَقْدَامِ. The criminals are going to be known by the way they look on the Day of Judgment, and they'll be taken to their punishment. فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. And then it talks about the believers, وَلِمَنْ خَافَ مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ جَنَّتَانِ. And those who fear the status of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala get two paradises, not one. فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. In which of the blessings of Allah do you too disbelieve? And it continues, فِيهِمَا مِنْ كُلِّ فَاكِهَةٍ زَوْجَانِ فيهما عينان تجريان متكئين على فرش بطائنها من استبرق وجنى الجنتين دان. And it continues to talk about how within paradise there's all these springs and fruit and places to recline and people to deal with, and everyone is beautiful and everyone is happy, and it's such an uplifting surah. Even those who are at a lower level of good deeds, they still get a Jannah. I mean, they don't get two paradises, they get one, but they still get something. فِيهِمَا فَاكِهَةٌ وَنَخْلٌ وَرُمَّانٌ. It talks about, but in the midst of all that, you'll find this ayah that kind of sticks out. He says, هَلْ جَزَاءُ الْإِحْسَانِ إِلَّا الْإِحْسَانِ. What is the reward for excellence except excellence? Is there any reward for excellence besides excellence? No. No. Jazā'ul ihsan is al-ihsan. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed us excellence, showed us ihsan in our lives. He gave us way more than we asked for, way more than we deserved. So what should our response be besides ihsan, besides showing excellence to ourselves? And then when you show excellence to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, again, He will show you excellence again on the Day of Judgment. So He'll do it twice for you. You just have to do it once for Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. You will see excellence from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala twice in your life. And you're required to show it only once in yours. Al-jazā'ul ihsāni illa al-ihsān. And the verse just continue to talk about the na'im, the joy that is found in Jannah. That's why it's such an enjoyable surah to recite, and people love to memorize it. But at the beginning of it, remember what it says. أَقِيمُوا الْوَزْنَ بِالْقِسْطِ وَلَا تُخْسِرُوا الْمِيزَانِ. Make sure that you continue to keep those scales balanced and fair, and don't mess with the balance. Don't mess with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving you. Make sure that you deal with it properly. Don't go in either direction extravagantly. And make sure that balance is sacred, because it is. Exactly Surat al-Qamar, إِنَّ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ خَلَقْنَاهُ بِقَدَرٍ. Everything is created with a destiny. You have to know what you're doing and how you're dealing with these things. You've been given all these blessings. There has to be a balance. You have to give back. You have to make sure that you're receiving all these blessings. You have to give them. You have to show ihsan. That's the balance. The surah talking about the balance, that's the balance. هَلْ جَزَاءُ الْإِحْسَانِ إِلَّا الْإِحْسَانِ. Is there any reward for excellence besides excellence? That's the balance. You can't be receiving excellence. You can't be receiving the best of all and sit around just taking, with nothing being given, with no effort being put. There's no balance. You're killing the balance. So benefit from these blessings by using them properly. Benefit from the blessings by keeping them blessings in Surat al-Rahman and avoiding making them a niqmah, curse in Surat al-Qamar. That's what the two surahs are talking about. And it's like there are two polars within under the same umbrella of a concept. Surat al-Qamar filled with warnings and nations being destroyed and a very heavy and thick way of speech. And Surat al-Rahman much more easy, but the concept is the same. What you're given by God has to be dealt with the proper balance, so that what you have doesn't turn into a niqmah, and it can stay a ni'mah. Tabarak ismu rabbik, dhil jalali wal ikram. Exalted is the name of your Lord, the one who is most glorious and the one who has the highest integrity, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Surah al-Rahman, من أجمل السور وأكثرها تداولا بين الناس يقرؤونها ويحفظونها. سبحان الله تسمعها فلها نغم مريح جميل. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان. تكرر هذا التكرار يريح الأعصاب. بأي نعمة من نعم الله سبحانه وتعالى يا إنس ويا جان تكذبون. هذه النعم كلها أمامكم. تكذبون بماذا؟ تكذبان بأي هذه النعم؟ ولا بنعمة من نعمك يا رب نكذب. هذا وكان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم في رواية يجيب هكذا. ولا بنعمتنا لا نكذب بنعمة من نعمك يا رب. وهكذا أجاب الجان أفضل من الصحابة في رواية طويلة معروفة. تبدأ اسم الرحمن، أجمل اسم من أسماء الله سبحانه وتعالى، الرحمة العامة لكل المخلوقات. علم القرآن، خلق الإنسان، علمه البيان. هذا الترتيب العجيب. علم القرآن وخلق الإنسان وعلمه البيان حتى يستوعب القرآن. ما هو القرآن لسه في سورة القمر من ثواني. ولقد يسرنا القرآن للذكر فهل من مدكر. سورة الرحمن يأتيك بالطرف الآخر. علم القرآن هو سبحانه وتعالى وعلم الإنسان البيان حتى يستفيد منه. لكن نبهنا ألا تطغوا في الميزان وأقيموا الوزن بالقسط ولا تخسروا الميزان. انتبه للميزان. هناك توازن مهم كما قال إن كل شيء خلقناه بقدر. فالميزان في سورة الرحمن ما تؤتاه من نعمة من الله سبحانه وتعالى يجب أن تشكرها أو تشكره، وإلا انقلب ذلك الميزان، وإلا أخسرنا الميزان وأفسدنا هذا التوازن الذي خلقه الله سبحانه وتعالى. وثم تعد سورة الرحمن نعم الله علينا، نعم كثيرة جدا لا تحصى، نعم في الدنيا ونعم في الآخرة. هكذا السورة. ثم تأتي إلى آية محورية فتقول هل جزاء الإحسان إلا الإحسان. هذا هو التوازن. أحسن الله إليك فهل يكون منك إلا أن تحسن. ثم لما تحسن أنت في الدنيا، هل تظن أن الله يلاقيك بشيء سوى الإحسان يوم القيامة؟ يحسن إلينا مرتين سبحانه وتعالى ونحسن مرة. هل جزاء الإحسان إلا الإحسان؟ لا ينبغي أن نستقبل إحسانه سبحانه وتعالى ثم لا نحسن نحن. إذا أردنا أن نبقي النعمة نعمة، فإذا أحسن إلينا سبحانه وتعالى نحسن نحن فنشكر. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان؟ تكذب بنعمة لا إذا نشكرها. وهذا هو معنى يعني سورة، وهذا هو محور يعني سورتي القمر والرحمن. I hope the concept of these two surahs were helpful and beneficial. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك، أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت، أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. جزاكم الله خيرا وبارك الله فيكم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته.